King Charles just ruthlessly shattered Queen Camilla's ultimate ambition, torpedoing her secret plan to secure an official royal title for her son Tom Parker Bowles, in a move that has instantly plunged the British monarchy into its most toxic, explosive civil war since Diana. This isn't some polite, hushed disagreement behind closed velvet doors. This is cold, calculated psychological warfare that is actively tearing the royal family apart from the inside out. If you love uncovering the raw, unfiltered truths behind deep palace secrets, please take a quick second to hit that subscribe button right now. Your support genuinely helps us keep bringing you these deep dive investigations. And we truly appreciate you being part of our channel as we break down this unprecedented drama. The whole nightmare kicked off behind the thick stone walls of Clarence House, where Camilla sat across from Charles, her gaze icy and calculated as she pitched an honorary title for Tom as a modern nod to his quiet contributions. On the surface, her argument sounded reasonable, noting Tom had caused zero scandals and remained fiercely loyal. But Charles saw the trap instantly, recognizing that granting a title to someone with no direct royal blood would shatter precedent, invite public outrage, and draw accusations of favoritism. Choosing institutional duty over personal affection, Charles flatly dismissed her plea, leaving Camilla's crown slipping the second she realized her husband refused to back her play. Instead of exploding in a messy public tantrum that would brand her as unstable, Camilla chose precision weaponization. Quietly activating a network of media allies cultivated over decades, she planted a toxic seed during a charity reception at Somerset House, whispering to a veteran reporter that Charles was sidelining his family while favoring William and Anne. That single seed exploded into front-page headlines by morning, asking if the king was taking sides and creating an instant public rift that set the internet on fire with a viral hashtag about a deep royal divide. When Charles sat alone in his Buckingham Palace office staring at the morning papers, he knew instantly his wife's ruthless fingerprints were all over the smear campaign, recognizing the subtle warfare designed to chip away at his image as a fair, unifying father figure. The court began splintering into whispering factions overnight, turning the palace into a Cold War zone where every royal decision was scrutinized as favoritism. Knowing he could not let her weaponize public opinion against the institution, a furious Charles summoned Camilla to a tense, rain-drenched meeting at Clarence House, only to be met with a chilling ultimatum when she warned him she would not halt the devastating leaks unless he granted Tom his title, proving to a stunned king that the woman he loved had transformed into a relentless adversary willing to burn down the crown. With his public reputation fracturing and approval ratings plummeting under the relentless blows of his wife's shadow campaign, King Charles realized he could no longer sit back and absorb the attacks, summoning his most trusted advisors to order a swift, discreet financial audit of the Queen's Outreach Fund. Handpicked independent auditors worked tirelessly through the night at Windsor Castle, initially finding clean records before stumbling upon alarming cracks hiding beneath the glossy surface of the charity. The shocking truth revealed that hundreds of thousands of pounds had been systematically funneled away from legitimate social projects and directly into projects run by Tom Parker Bowles and Camilla's close circle, including lavish restaurant promotion dinners and political lobbying groups designed to expand her national influence. Auditors even uncovered a suspicious $50,000 transfer to a close friends organization that directly financed the secret media campaign, timing the negative articles against Charles. It wasn't outright criminal corruption, but it was a blatant, highly illegal misuse of a public charity for personal and political gain that violated every strict financial rule of the royal family. If this explosive dossier ever leaked to the tabloids, headlines would instantly scream about the Queen misusing charity funds to secure titles for her son, triggering devastating parliamentary investigations and destroying Camilla's public career forever. Charles sat alone in the dim light, flipping through the pages with a heavy heart, knowing he held the ultimate weapon to crush her campaign, yet feeling completely anguished because destroying Camila would mean tearing his own emotional anchor apart. Desperate to give her one final chance to see reason before matters escalated past the point of no return, Charles traveled unannounced to Clarence House through a dreary, rainy afternoon to issue a solemn final warning, laying out the terrifying reality of the audit and pleading with her to recognize this was about preserving the survival of the monarchy itself. But Camila refused to flinch, her gaze remaining ice-cold and unrepentant as she threw his words back in his face, accusing him of hypocrisy and declaring she would never back down until he capitulated to her demands. As Charles walked out into the pouring rain with anger and frustration surging through his veins, he realized with absolute finality that words had lost their power, and he had no choice left but to unleash the trap he had built to protect the institution, knowing full well that crossing this dangerous Rubicon would permanently alter their marriage and leave permanent emotional scars across the history of the British Crown. The very next night, operating under absolute cloak and dagger secrecy inside a dimly lit, heavily guarded chamber deep within the ancient stone walls of Windsor Castle, King Charles executed the ultimate power move, convening a silent, confidential tribunal with his most trusted inner circle, including Princess Anne and elite legal minds, to address the greatest internal crisis of his entire reign. With zero official records permitted to prevent any leaks from destroying the monarchy from the outside, Charles laid out the thick, damning audit dossier right in the center of the mahogany table, exposing chapter and verse on how the Queen's outreach fund had been illegally milked to finance personal luxury projects and aggressive political lobbying. The room fell into an absolute, chilling silence as the members flipped through the explosive pages, realizing the catastrophic depth of the betrayal before unanimously locking arms with the king to approve swift, ruthless, and entirely silent disciplinary measures to crush Camilla's rogue network without triggering a public apocalypse. Buckingham Palace didn't waste a single second striking back. Within hours, an iron-fisted directive ordered the entire charity fund transferred to an independent oversight board, completely freezing every single project, restaurant promotion, and political seminar tied to Tom Parker Bowles, effectively cutting off the financial oxygen of Camilla's entire empire. When her terrified private secretary finally delivered the official notice at Clarence House the next morning, Camilla stared at the papers in sheer, unadulterated disbelief before her fingers crumpled the pages in a blind, trembling rage, realizing with sickening clarity that the man she shared a bed with had weaponized the entire royal institution to choke her out of power. Boiling with a fury that could melt steel, she didn't just sit back and take it. She stormed straight out of Clarence House, jumped into her luxury limousine, and ordered the driver to floor it straight to Buckingham Palace, bursting unannounced through the heavy oak doors of the king's private office like a literal hurricane, slamming the door behind her with a thunderous echo that shook the walls. Charles slowly looked up from his desk, his face etched with exhaustion, but his eyes holding firm, completely braced for the absolute firestorm about to hit him. Camilla didn't hold back a single ounce of her venom, launching into a blistering, tear-fueled verbal assault, screaming at the man who had supposedly loved her, accusing him of cowardly hiding behind the Privy Council to stab her in the back, erase her legacy, and humiliate her in front of the entire world, just to protect his precious image. She hurled every bitter truth straight into his face, shouting that while William and the rest of the royal bloodline got handed everything on a silver platter, her son Tom was being crucified just because he didn't carry the right royal DNA. But Charles didn't flinch, rising slowly from his chair to meet her fiery gaze with a heavy, broken heart, explaining in a calm, exhausted voice that this brutal intervention wasn't a petty act of revenge, but a desperate life-or-death shield to keep the entire crown from collapsing into total, unforgivable ruin. Yet, logic and reason were completely useless against a woman whose empire had just been burned to the ground The argument spiraled violently out of control into a toxic screaming match where neither side would yield an inch, until Camilla suddenly wiped the tears from her face, her expression freezing over into pure, terrifying ice, warning him with a whisper that sent chills down his spine that he had officially crossed the line, made her his absolute enemy, and would live to regret this brutal day for the rest of his life. In the devastating weeks that followed, the royal trap slammed completely shut around her, transforming Clarence House from a palace of triumph into a golden, suffocating prison where invitations miraculously vanished, public duties evaporated into thin air, and the entire royal court executed a silent, bone-chilling freeze-out that left her completely isolated, while the tabloids feasted on rumors of her sudden disappearance. Even poor Tom took the brunt of the absolute devastation, watching his business empire and media connections evaporate overnight as frightened associates ran for the hills, leaving the once untouchable mother and son stranded in a harsh, unforgiving exile. Yet, the most chilling part of this entire dark saga happened late one foggy autumn evening, when a yet defiant Camilla stood silently by her tall glass window at Clarence House, staring out through the cold drizzle at the glittering lights of London, refusing to let the flame of her ambition die out in the dark. She pressed her hand against the freezing glass as a slow, calculating smile crept across her face, knowing deep down that while she had lost this brutal battle, the grand game of royal court politics was far from over, leaving her lurking quietly in the shadows, waiting for the exact right moment to strike back and tear the crown right off his head.